My beloved child, pause everything you are doing right now, because this moment is not ordinary, and this message did not arrive by chance. Something sacred is unfolding around you, and heaven itself has leaned in to interrupt your routine. What you are hearing now was confirmed before this day ever began, before you opened your eyes this morning, before you even realized something felt different in the air. Archangel Michael has stood as a witness and messenger to declare that today was pre-selected, marked, and set apart specifically for your shift. This is not symbolic language. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is a divine interruption that carries weight, authority, and consequence if ignored. There are days that look normal on the surface but are loaded with unseen assignments, and today is one of them. From the outside, it may feel like just another day, but in the unseen realm, movement has already begun. Timelines have aligned, permissions have been released, and forces that once resisted your progress have been placed on notice. Archangel Michael does not speak casually, and he does not intervene without cause. His confirmation today signals that a process has already started, and you did not start it by your effort. It was initiated from above. You may have felt an unusual pull, an inner nudge that told you to stop scrolling, to pause, to listen, even if you could not explain why. That was not curiosity. That was recognition at the spirit level. Something within you knew that missing this moment would not simply be postponing information, but interrupting momentum. Heaven operates in sequences, and sequences require alignment. When a sequence is interrupted, it does not mean destruction, but it does mean delay, repetition, and unnecessary struggle. That is why this message carries urgency without fear. It is not threat. It is a warning wrapped in protection. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian of divine order. When he confirms a day, it means timing is involved. It means protection is involved. It means a line has been drawn between before and after. There are shifts that happen slowly, and there are shifts that are activated by awareness. Today is the second kind. Awareness is the key that keeps the door open. Ignoring awareness does not erase the door, but it does close access to what was meant to move smoothly. You have been in a season where things felt almost ready, almost aligned, almost clear, yet never fully settled. That was not confusion. That was compression. Pressure was building because release was near. Heaven does not waste pressure. When pressure increases, it is because movement is imminent. Archangel Michael has been assigned to oversee transitions like this, especially when the shift involves protection over your future, clarity over your direction, and separation from cycles that no longer serve your calling. Today being pre-selected means it was chosen long before you were aware of it. You were not late. You were not forgotten. You were being prepared. Certain conversations had to end. Certain attachments had to loosen. Certain illusions had to fall away so that when this day arrived, you would be able to receive without resistance. Even your weariness was part of the process, not a sign of failure. Sometimes exhaustion is the signal that a season has reached its limit. The reason skipping this matters is not because heaven is fragile, but because you are valuable. When something is valuable, it is handled with precision. This moment is a handoff point. What you have been carrying internally is about to be transferred into motion. But motion requires consent, and consent requires presence. Simply being here, listening fully, is an act of agreement. Agreement keeps the process uninterrupted. Archangel Michael's confirmation also carries reassurance. Nothing that is being shifted today is meant to harm you, overwhelm you, or confuse you. This is not about chaos. This is about alignment. Protection has already been set around what is changing, That is why fear has no place here. The urgency you feel is not panic. It is timing. There is a difference. Panic drains. Timing sharpens. Midnight holds significance not because of superstition, but because it marks a boundary. Boundaries matter in the spiritual realm. They separate what was from what is becoming. You are standing near that boundary now. This message is positioned before it intentionally. Not to rile you, but to ready you. Readiness is what allows transitions to be gentle instead of jarring. If you have been questioning why things could not move faster before, understand this now. Acceleration without stability creates collapse. What is being activated today is stable, protected, and sustainable. That is why it required precision timing and confirmation from Archangel Michael himself. Your life is not being rearranged randomly. It is being reordered deliberately. As you listen, something is already settling inside you. That quiet sense of recognition is your spirit responding to truth. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be for this moment to unfold as intended. This interruption is not a disruption to your life. It is a correction that keeps you aligned with what was always meant for you. My precious one, receive this with clarity now. In heaven, days are not measured the way humans measure them. While your calendar may show a simple date, the spiritual realm sees layers, assignments, and divine permissions attached to specific moments. Some days are designed for waiting, some for learning, some for pruning, and a rare few are designed for movement. Today belongs to that rare category. It was marked long before you sensed anything unusual, long before this message found you, long before your conscious mind realized that something subtle yet powerful was shifting within you. This day was not chosen randomly, and it was not chosen emotionally. It was selected because readiness reached completion. Heaven does not activate shifts based on desperation or impatience. It responds to alignment. Over time, alignment was forming inside you quietly. You outgrew certain conversations without announcing it. You became uncomfortable with patterns you once tolerated. You started craving depth over noise, truth over distraction, clarity over comfort. These were not personality changes. They were indicators that your inner posture was changing to match an external move that was already scheduled. Archangel Michael stands as the enforcer of divine order, not human preference. When he confirms a day, it means something has reached structural readiness. Think of it like a bridge being completed internally before anyone is allowed to cross it. Crossing too early would have been unsafe. Crossing too late would have caused unnecessary delay. Today sits perfectly between those two extremes. That is why it matters. You may ask why heaven would care about timing so precisely. The answer is simple. Timing protects you. When things move out of order, even good things can feel heavy, confusing, or overwhelming. When things move in order, peace accompanies progress. Archangel Michael's involvement signals that what is unfolding is not meant to exhaust you. It is meant to stabilize you. In the days leading up to now, distractions may have increased. Fatigue may have felt heavier than usual. Motivation may have dipped for no clear reason. This was not regression. It was transition. Transition often feels uncomfortable because the old structure loosens before the new one fully settles. Heaven allows this discomfort briefly so you do not cling to what is no longer aligned. Today represents the settling point, where order begins to reassert itself. This is also why ignoring this moment does not cancel the process, but it complicates it. When alignment is ignored, life does not punish you, but it does become repetitive. Lessons repeat. Doors take longer to open. Momentum feels harder to maintain. Awareness is what smooths the path. Awareness is what turns effort into flow. Archangel Michael's confirmation today also reveals something important about you. You are trusted with responsibility. Heaven does not announce pre-selected days to those who are careless with timing. Responsibility here does not mean burden. It means stewardship. You are being entrusted with awareness because you are capable of responding to it. As this awareness settles, it is important to actively align yourself with it. This is why engagement matters. When you like this message, when you share it with someone who needs clarity, when you comment and declare that you receive what is being spoken, you are not performing a routine action. You are reinforcing alignment. Subscribing and staying connected ensures continuity, because shifts rarely happen in isolation. They unfold through understanding, layer by layer. Joining the membership is not about exclusivity. It is about consistency, about staying positioned where clarity continues to flow. You are not required to understand every detail today. Understanding unfolds progressively. What matters now is recognition. Recognition tells heaven that you are present, attentive, and willing to move in order rather than resistance. That willingness alone removes unnecessary friction from what comes next. As midnight approaches, the energy of this day begins to settle into place. Thresholds are quiet moments, not dramatic ones. They do not announce themselves loudly. They wait to see who is paying attention. You are paying attention now. That matters. Archangel Michael's role here is not to rush you, but to guard the process. Guarding does not look like force. It looks like clarity replacing confusion. It looks like calm replacing inner noise. If you feel a sense of steadiness even as things shift, that is confirmation that order is being restored. There is more to be revealed, and it will connect directly to what you are experiencing now. Give yourself permission to remain open, because this unfolding is intentional. Trust the timing you are standing in, because it was selected with precision. And keep your focus here, because what is being explained next will bring even deeper understanding to why this moment matters more than you initially realized. My beloved one, let this truth settle deeply within you now. This shift was scheduled with your name on it. Not symbolically, not generally, not as a shared experience meant for everyone who happens to listen. This was designed with your journey in mind, your questions, your endurance, your private prayers that were never spoken out loud. Heaven does not mass-produce transitions. When it comes to destiny, everything is personal, intentional, and precise. That is why this moment feels intimate, almost confrontational in its clarity, as if it is addressing parts of you that even those closest to you do not fully understand. Many people move through life waiting for something to change without realizing that some changes wait for recognition first. You are here because recognition has awakened inside you. Others may hear similar words on other days and feel nothing. Others may scroll past and feel no pull at all. A difference is not about intelligence or goodness. It is about timing. Timing decides the audience. And your presence here confirms that something within you aligned at the exact moment heaven required it to. Archangel Michael's involvement confirms that this is not a fragile shift. Personalized transitions often face resistance because they disrupt familiar patterns, even patterns that were uncomfortable yet predictable. But protection has already been placed around this movement. You are not stepping into uncertainty uncovered. You are stepping into a guarded transition where authority precedes you. That is why fear hath been losing its grip lately, even if questions still exist. Fear cannot dominate where order has been established. You may reflect on the signs that led you here, repeated thoughts that would not leave, cycles that suddenly felt unbearable to continue, old reactions that stopped working the way they used to. conversations that lost their meaning. These were not random emotional states. They were indicators that your internal structure was being recalibrated. Heaven always changes perception before it changes circumstances. Your perception has been shifting quietly, which means circumstances are preparing to follow. This shift is not about becoming someone unfamiliar. It is about returning to what was original before you learned to adapt, survive, and compromise. Archangel Michael does not defend false variants. He stands guard over original design. What is being activated now aligns you closer to that design, which is why it feels both unsettling and deeply familiar at the same time. You, yet known. Challenging, yet peaceful. Because this moment is personal, your response to it carries weight. Response does not mean striving, proving, or forcing outcomes. It means agreement. Agreement says, I recognize this as mine. Agreement stabilizes what is being activated so it does not scatter or delay. Recognition is the anchor that holds this shift in place. There is a reason you endured what others walked away from. A reason you adapted instead of breaking. A reason your faith evolved instead of collapsing. These were not accidents or signs of weakness. They were preparation. This is not reward language. It is alignment language. Alignment simply places you where movement can happen without unnecessary resistance. You may not yet see the full picture, and that is intentional. Full clarity often comes after the first step of agreement, not before it. What matters now is that something inside you knows this moment is real. That knowing is more powerful than complete understanding. Understanding unfolds. Recognition activates. As this realization settles, a seal is being placed on this moment in the unseen. Seals mark ownership, protection, and authorization. What is sealed is not easily disrupted. That is why this moment matters more than it may appear on the surface. Type I receive the shift in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 739 has just been released. What you are receiving right now did not begin with this video, and it is not meant to end with you alone. This word is part of a greater flow designed to reach souls who are still searching for clarity in the dark. When you release support through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing light into lives you may never meet, but heaven sees clearly. I hear the Spirit saying, as you sow into my work, I will cause rivers to rise where there was drought. This is not about helping a channel. This is about partnering with a divine assignment. If your spirit feels stirred, respond now. I release blessing over every seed sown. May your harvest come swiftly and without resistance. Act now in obedience. My dear one, allow this moment to slow you down internally, because something begins to break the instant you truly listen with your spirit and not just your ears. This kind of listening is different. It is not passive and it is not casual. It is the kind of attention that signals readiness, the kind that says, I am present for what is unfolding. The moment you crossed into that level of awareness, movement began in realms you cannot see but have felt pressing against you for a long time. The first thing that begins to break is not your outer circumstances. It is the invisible pressure that surrounded them. That pressure followed you quietly, sometimes felt as heaviness, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as an unexplainable sense that something needed to change but could not yet move. That pressure was never punishment. It was containment. It existed because something powerful was being held back until the right moment. Now that moment has arrived, and containment is no longer necessary. As pressure breaks and confusion weakens, confusion thrives where order is unclear. But when Archangel Michael oversees a transition, order is restored before movement accelerates. His presence does not create noise, It creates travail. You may already sense this as a subtle internal quieting, a steadiness replacing the mental loops that once repeated endlessly. This is not numbness. It is stabilization. Thoughts that once felt urgent may suddenly feel less demanding. Questions that once caused anxiety may feel less sharp. This does not mean answers are being withheld. It means anxiety is being removed from the process. Anxiety is not a guide. It is a signal that order hath been disrupted. As order returns, anxiety loses its voice. What also begins to break is the habit of bracing yourself. For a long time, you may have lived internally prepared for disappointment, prepared for delay, prepared for resistance. That posture was learned during seasons when guarding yourself was necessary. But guarding is exhausting, and it was never meant to be permanent. When protection becomes active, guarding becomes unnecessary. Archangel Michael's assignment here is to guard the transition so you do not have to. That is why your inner posture is softening now. Softening does not mean vulnerability without protection. It means defenses are no longer required. When something precious is guarded externally, it can rest internally. You are entering a season where rest is not laziness, and trust is not naivete. They are appropriate responses to restored order. As this breaking continues, certain narratives begin to dissolve quietly. Narratives like I must struggle to deserve progress, or if I stop pushing, everything will fall apart, or nothing changes unless I carry it alone. These narratives were not born from truth. They were formed in survival. Survival creates strategies that work temporarily but become burdens when seasons change. Those strategies are no longer needed, and that is why they are losing strength. You may notice that attachments to certain outcomes are loosening. This does not mean you no longer care. It means desperation is being replaced with trust. Desperation clings. Trust allows. Allowing creates flow. Flow restores peace. This sequence is unfolding naturally now. There may also be a gentle separation happening between you and patterns that once defined your routine. Old reactions may not rise the way they used to. Old temptations may feel strangely hollow. Old fears may appear briefly and then fade. This is not suppression. It is recalibration. When order is restored, what does not belong cannot maintain its hold. Nothing breaking in this moment is essential to your future. Only what has completed its assignment is being released. Completion is not loss. It is fulfillment. What fulfilled its purpose steps aside so what is next can arrive without obstruction. Heaven is careful not to remove what you still need. That is why this breaking feels calm rather than violent, gentle rather than chaotic. You may experience brief emotional waves as memories surface and pass. These are fragments being cleared, not invitations to revisit pain. Observe them without judgment. Observation is enough. Engagement would slow the release. You are not meant to reprocess everything again. You are meant to move forward lighter. As pressure breaks, discernment strengthens. Discernment is the quiet knowing of what belongs and what does not. It does not argue. It does not explain. It simply recognizes. You are regaining this clarity now, and it will guide you more accurately than effort ever could. There is no action required from you here other than presence. Presence keeps the process smooth. Resistance complicates it. Curiosity supports it. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are exactly where alignment can deepen without strain. This breaking is not the end of the shift. It is the clearing that makes the next movements possible. Space is being created intentionally, and what fills that space next will feel natural, steady, and deeply aligned, because it will meet you where you truly are. not where you once had to be. Rest in this awareness. Order is returning. A weight is lifting. And what unfolds next will do so with greater ease than anything you have experienced before. My beloved child, now it is time to understand the meaning of the threshold you are standing before, because what is approaching is not random, and it is not symbolic in a shallow way. Midnight represents more than a change of numbers on a clock. It is a boundary point, a crossing where one cycle fully closes and another is authorized to begin. Boundaries matter deeply in the spiritual realm. Heaven works through order, and order is marked by transitions. You are not approaching midnight by accident. You are being guided to it with intention. For much of your life, transitions may have felt abrupt, confusing, or unfinished. Things ended without clarity. New things began without direction. That created a sense of instability, as if you were always catching up instead of moving with purpose. What makes this moment different is awareness. Awareness transforms a boundary from a shock into a doorway. When you know you are crossing, you cross differently. You cross with alignment instead of resistance. Midnight is significant because it represents completion and permission at the same time. Completion of what has run its course. Permission for what has been waiting to begin. Heaven often chooses thresholds like this not to create urgency, but to create clarity. You cannot carry everything forward. Some things must end cleanly so they do not bleed into what comes next. Clean endings protect new beginnings. Archangel Michael's presence at thresholds is not accidental. He is assigned where boundaries must be guarded. When something ends, it must end fully. When something begins, it must begin under protection. Without guarding, transitions can feel chaotic, as if old patterns try to follow you into new territory. With guarding, those patterns lose access. That is what is happening now. You may notice a sense of reflection rising within you. Thoughts about past choices, past delays, past endurance. This is not regret being stirred. It is integration. Integration gathers lessons so they do not need to repeat. When lessons are integrated, cycles close permanently. That is one of the greatest gifts of awareness. It prevents unnecessary repetition. The midnight threshold also explains why this moment feels quiet rather than dramatic. True transitions are rarely loud. They are resolved internally before they manifest externally. Noise comes from conflict. Quiet comes from alignment. If you feel a calm seriousness rather than excitement or fear, that is a sign that this transition is orderly. You are not being asked to force closure. Closure is already happening. What you are being asked to do is allow it. Allowing is not passive. It is cooperative. Cooperation removes friction. Friction is what makes transitions painful. Heaven does not intend pain here. It intends precision. There may be relationships, habits, or internal agreements that are gently loosening now. Not because they were wrong, but because they were seasonal. Seasons are not moral judgments. They are phases of growth. When a season ends, holding on creates stagnation. Releasing creates movement. Movement restores life. You may also sense that expectations are shifting. Expectations about how things should look, how fast they should happen, or how others should respond. These expectations were formed under old conditions. New conditions require new expectations. Archangel Michael helps realign expectations so disappointment does not follow you forward. Midnight also symbolizes surrender of control. Control belongs to daylight, to visibility, to certainty. Midnight belongs to trust. Trust does not need full visibility. It needs assurance. Assurance is being given to you now. You are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into ordered unknowns, which are very different. Ordered unknowns feel mysterious but safe. Chaotic unknowns feel threatening. This moment carries safety, even if it carries mystery. That is why fear is not dominating this space. Where fear is absent, guidance can be heard more clearly. Nothing that belongs to you will miss you at this threshold. Nothing that is meant to continue will be lost. What does not cross with you was never meant to define the next chapter. This is not loss. It is refinement. As midnight approaches, the work being done is internal authorization. Authorization allows things to move without resistance once the boundary is crossed. Without authorization, even good things feel blocked. With authorization, doors open naturally. You do not need to mark this moment outwardly. The marking is happening inwardly. Heaven records awareness. Heaven honors recognition. Heaven responds to agreement. Stand here without fear. Stand here without pressure. This threshold is not demanding something from you. It is offering alignment to you. And once crossed, what unfolds will carry a sense of rightness that confirms you moved at the correct time, in the correct way, under the correct covering. This is not an ending to fear. It is an ending to confusion. And that ending makes space for clarity to lead you forward with steadiness and peace. My precious one, receive this carefully now, because what has begun around you is not a single moment meant to pass quickly. This shift is not an emotional high, not a temporary insight, and not a fleeting sense of clarity. It is a living process, and living processes require consistency to mature. Heaven does not initiate alignment and then step away. What hath been activated must be reinforced, protected, and steadily understood so it can become permanent rather than fade into memory. Many people misunderstand this phase of a shift. They believe that once something is activated, everything should instantly feel complete and effortless. But clarity is not the finish line. Clarity is the doorway. Order establishes direction, but direction must still be walked. This is why staying connected right now matters far more than it appears on the surface. Not because something will break if you don't, but because understanding deepens through repetition, presence, and reinforcement. Archangel Michael's role in this season goes beyond initiation. He is assigned not only to open gates, but to guard what passes through them. Maintenance is quieter than activation, yet it is just as powerful. Maintenance keeps order intact. Without it, even divine beginnings can drift into confusion, not because they fail, but because attention becomes scattered. Drift is subtle. It does not arrive with chaos or warning. Drift happens when truth is heard once but not revisited, when clarity is acknowledged but not reinforced, when awareness fades and familiar patterns quietly reclaim space. This is why many people experience repeated cycles in life, not because heaven withholds progress, but because understanding was never anchored long enough to transform behavior and perception. You may recognize this pattern in your own journey. Moments where something finally made sense, followed by weeks or months where uncertainty returned. Breakthroughs that felt real, yet did not fully last. That does not mean those breakthroughs were false. It means they were not guarded. Anchoring requires presence. Presence requires intention. This is where simple actions carry deeper meaning. When you like this message, you are not performing a routine task. You are affirming alignment. When you share it, you are extending clarity beyond yourself, and clarity multiplies when it flows outward. When you comment, you are declaring agreement, and declarations establish authority. When you subscribe, you are choosing continuity over interruption. When you join the membership, you are choosing consistency over fragmentation. His actions may seem small, but spiritually they reinforce structure during transition. Heaven works through rhythm. Rhythm stabilizes growth. Disruption weakens it. Staying connected preserves rhythm while things are still settling. This is how peace remains present even while movement continues. Peace does not mean nothing is changing. It means change is happening in order. Archangel Michael is also guarding what influences you during this season. Influence matters most during transitions. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Discernment sharpens when noise decreases. Staying connected to messages that bring order helps you filter what belongs now and what does not. You may notice a growing desire for simplicity. Fewer explanations. Fewer emotional negotiations. Fewer unnecessary struggles. This is not withdrawal. It is refinement. Refinement removes excess so strength can concentrate. You are not becoming smaller. You are becoming clearer. There may also be moments when doubt tries to return, questioning whether what you sensed was real or lasting. This is common after clarity, because familiarity resists change. Familiar patterns feel safe even when they limit growth. Alignment feels unfamiliar even when it is right. Staying connected helps you remember what you recognized before doubt had space to speak. Community matters more than you may realize right now. You are not meant to process everything alone. Even quiet community, knowing others are walking through similar moments of alignment, strengthens perception. Isolation magnifies uncertainty. Connection stabilizes truth. This is why heaven rarely moves individuals without also providing reinforcement. As this process continues, you will notice patterns becoming easier to recognize. What once confused you will become obvious. What once strained you will become avoidable. What once required constant effort will begin to flow more naturally. This is the fruit of maintained alignment. Do not underestimate this stage. Many shifts never reach fullness, not because they were wrong, but because they were abandoned too early. You are being invited to remain present, not anxious, not obsessive, simply consistent. Consistency turns insight into reality. Consistency allows order to settle. Hold your awareness here, because what unfolds next will connect pieces that may have felt unrelated until now. When those pieces connect, the larger pattern will become clear, and you will understand why remaining engaged at this moment was essential. Trust this process, and keep listening, because what is about to be revealed will deepen everything you have already begun to sense. My beloved one, there is something you must understand about the resistance you felt along the way, because it was never a sign that you were off course. In fact, it was proof that something valuable was forming. Resistance does not rise against what is insignificant. It rises where movement threatens to change order. What you experienced was not delay meant to stop you, but pressure meant to test alignment. For a long time, you may have questioned why things felt harder just as you became more aware. Why confusion intensified right before clarity. Why obstacles appeared when you were finally ready to move forward. This pattern is not accidental. Resistance often increases at the edge of transition because old structures sense they are losing influence. They attempt to maintain familiarity, even if familiarity was limiting. Archangel Michael's involvement in this season reveals an important truth. Resistance does not get the final word. He is not sent to eliminate resistance instantly, but to ensure it does not overstep its authority. Resistance is allowed to reveal what must be strengthened, but it is not allowed to define your outcome. That is why you endured without breaking. That endurance was not accidental. It was evidence of protection already in place. You may remember moments when giving up seemed easier than continuing, Moments when disengaging felt tempting. Moments when silence felt safer than faith. Those moments were not weakness. They were crossroads. And each time, even when you did not feel strong, you chose to remain open. That choice mattered more than you knew at the time. Resistance often disguises itself as internal conflict. Doubt disguised as logic. Fear disguised as caution. Fatigue disguised as wisdom. These disguises are convincing because they sound reasonable. But reason without alignment leads to stagnation. Alignment without full understanding still leads forward. You chose alignment even when understanding was incomplete. This is why resistance did not defeat you. It refined you. Refinement removes excess and strengthens core. What remains after resistance is usually more authentic than what existed before it. You are not the same person you were when the season began. Your awareness is sharper. Your tolerance for confusion is lower. Your desire for truth is stronger. These are signs of refinement, not damage. Archangel Michael oversees moments where refinement must be protected. Without protection, refinement can turn into weariness. With protection, it turns into wisdom. Wisdom does not rush. Wisdom recognizes timing. Wisdom waits when waiting is required and moves when movement is authorized. You are stepping into wisdom now. You may still feel echoes of resistance at times. That does not mean it has returned. Echoes are remnants, not threats. They fade when they are not engaged. Do not argue with them. Do not analyze them endlessly. Recognition without reaction is enough. Reaction feeds resistance. Recognition dissolves it. It is also important to understand that resistance sharpened your discernment. Discernment is often forged under pressure. Without pressure, everything feels acceptable. With pressure, truth becomes distinct. You now sense more clearly what aligns with you and what drains you. This clarity will serve you well in what comes next. Nothing you endured was wasted. Every delay taught patience. Every obstacle taught focus. Every moment of uncertainty taught trust beyond evidence. These lessons are now integrated. Integrated lessons do not repeat. They become foundation. This is why the resistance you faced is now losing relevance. It no longer has a role to play. Its assignment was to test, not to remain. Once the test is complete, resistance must withdraw. That withdrawal may feel quiet, almost anticlimactic. But quiet endings are often the most complete. As this happens, you may notice an increasing sense of emotional steadiness. Highs and lows begin to level. Decisions feel clearer. Reactions slow down. This is not numbness. It is balance. Balance allows you to move forward without being pushed or pulled excessively. Archangel Michael's presence continues to ensure that what you have gained through resistance is not lost through distraction. Protection now surrounds your discernment, your clarity, and your direction. This is why things that once unsettled you no longer carry the same weight. You are not required to prove anything moving forward. Resistance demanded proof. Alignment requires trust. Trust does not need constant validation. It rests in knowing. Allow yourself to acknowledge this quietly. You survived what you once thought would break you, and in surviving, you were reshaped rather than destroyed. The reshaping prepared you for what is ahead. What comes next will not require the same kind of struggle. Not because challenges disappear entirely, but because your relationship with them has changed. You no longer fight everything. You choose what deserves your energy. That choice is power. Rest in this understanding. Resistance was confirmation, not condemnation. It marked you as someone worth opposing, which means you are someone worth advancing. And now that its role is complete, you are free to move forward with steadiness, clarity, and guarded peace. My beloved one, receive this sacred understanding now, because it carries depth that goes beyond a single moment. Heaven responds when you respond. Nothing in the unseen realm moves randomly, and nothing is released without resonance. When you chose to listen instead of dismiss, when you paused instead of rushing past, when you stayed present instead of drifting away, a response was triggered. That response did not begin in heaven alone. It began in alignment. Alignment creates resonance, and resonance authorizes reinforcement. Your response was not limited to this moment. It began earlier than you realize. It began when disappointment did not harden your heart. It began when delay did not turn into bitterness. It began when confusion did not silence your curiosity. Every time you chose to remain inwardly open, even when answers were unclear, you were responding. Those responses accumulated. I formed a signal. And today, that signal was answered. Archangel Michael's role at this stage is reinforcement. Reinforcement is not about starting something new. It is about strengthening what has already been authorized. Once recognition happens, heaven does not leave the transition exposed. It sends support to ensure stability. This support rarely arrives as dramatic change. More often, it arrives as steadiness, less emotional turbulence, fewer internal arguments, a quiet confidence that replaces urgency. You may sense this already. A feeling of being backed. A sense that you are not carrying everything alone anymore. That sense is not imagination. It is reinforcement settling into place. Reinforcement feels like trust growing stronger than fear. It feels like patience replacing pressure. It feels like clarity becoming easier to access. This is why obedience matters more than intensity. Intensity flares quickly and burns out. Obedience sustains movement over time. You were not required to understand everything before responding. You only needed to recognize the moment. Recognition opens channels. Channels allow reinforcement to flow. And that flow is active right now. Heaven also responds by adjusting details around you. Subtle details. Conversations that shift tone. Opportunities that align differently. Distractions that lose their pull. Old temptations that suddenly feel empty. These are not coincidences. They are recalibrations designed to support what has been activated. Support does not always look like addition. Often, it looks like removal of interference. Archangel Michael ensures that interference does not regain access. That is why some doors remain closed now, even if they once seemed promising. Closed doors are not punishment. They are protection. Protection preserves focus. Focus preserves momentum. Momentum carries the shift forward without unnecessary struggle. As reinforcement settles, your inner stability increases. You may notice that emotional reactions soften. The waiting feels less threatening. That decisions no longer feel rushed. This does not mean movement has stopped. It means movement has become ordered. Ordered movement is sustainable movement. Heaven responds proportionally. Small responses from you are met with precise reinforcement from above. This is why presence matters more than dramatic gestures. Presence keeps channels open. Receptivity allows reinforcement to integrate rather than pass through unnoticed. You are not required to strive for reinforcement. You are already receiving it. Your role is to remain receptive. Receptivity does not require effort. It requires openness. And openness is already active within you. This is also a moment where obedience is marked. Obedience does not always look bold. Sometimes it looks like staying when it would be easier to disengage. Sometimes it looks like listening again when doubt whispers otherwise. That obedience has been seen, and it has been answered. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 864 has now been released. What is unfolding right now is not meant to stop with you. This word is moving like oil, flowing into places that are dry and searching for direction. When you release support through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing into lives you may never see, but heaven sees clearly. I hear the Spirit saying, "As you strengthen my work, I will strengthen your foundation." This is not a donation. It is obedience released into motion. Souls are waiting on the other side of your response. I speak blessing over every giver. May heaven answer you swiftly and completely. Act now. Release the seed. My beloved one, hear this with assurance and calm, because this truth is meant to steady you. The shift you have been sensing is already in motion. It is not waiting for the perfect moment, and it is not paused until everything becomes visible. Movement in the unseen often begins quietly, long before results announce themselves. What feels subtle now is not weak. It is foundational. Foundations are laid before anything rises. You may be tempted to look for immediate external confirmation, something obvious that proves change has begun. But most real transformations do not begin with visible signs. They begin with internal reordering. Internal reordering changes how you interpret, respond, and decide. Once that changes, external movement follows naturally. You are already in that first phase, and it is exactly where you need to be. This is why things may feel different without being dramatic. Your reactions may be slower. Your patience may be deeper. Your urgency may be softer. These are not delays. These are indicators that something has settled into place. When chaos governs, everything feels rushed. When order governs, timing feels intentional. Archangel Michael's continued presence around this process ensures that momentum does not scatter. Momentum does not always feel fast. Sometimes it feels steady. Steady movement outlasts bursts of speed. You are being carried forward with steadiness now so that what unfolds remains sustainable. You may notice that certain concerns that once dominated your thoughts are no longer as loud. They may still exist, but they no longer control your focus. Control has shifted. When control shifts inwardly, circumstances eventually follow. Inner authority always precedes external authority. This stage can feel unfamiliar because it lacks urgency. You may wonder if you are doing enough, if you should push harder, if something is missing. Nothing is missing. This is what alignment feels like when it is real. It does not demand constant effort. It invites cooperation. The shift, being in motion, also means that old timelines are losing relevance. What you once expected by a certain time may no longer matter. Not because it failed, but because something better aligned is forming. Timelines change when understanding deepens. Heaven is not bound by your original expectations. It responds to your current alignment. You may sense an invitation to trust process over outcome. Outcome satisfy curiosity. Process builds character and clarity. When you learn to trust process, outcomes arrive without anxiety. Anxiety often tries to return when outcomes are delayed, but delay does not mean denial. It often means refinement. This is also why comparison feels increasingly uncomfortable now. Other people's past no longer inspire or discourage you the way they once did. That is because your focus is turning inward, where guidance becomes personal. Comparison loses power when calling becomes clear. You are not being rushed because rushing would disturb what is forming. Growth that is rushed cracks under pressure. Growth that is allowed strengthens quietly. Archangel Michael ensures that pace is maintained so integrity is not compromised. If you feel moments of stillness, do not misinterpret them as stagnation. Stillness is often where alignment deepens. Stillness allows recalibration. Recalibration ensures that movement continues in the correct direction. Noise is not proof of progress. Alignment is. There may also be subtle confirmations appearing around you. Not dramatic signs, but small affirmations. A sentence that stands out. A conversation that aligns. A sense of peace where there was once confusion. These are markers along the path. They are meant to reassure, not distract. What is already in motion does not require constant monitoring. Monitoring creates pressure. Trust allows flow. Flow accelerates naturally when resistance is absent. You are learning to move without fighting every step. This stage invites patience without passivity. You are not waiting idly. You are allowing movement to unfold without interference. Interference often comes from fear, not wisdom. Wisdom recognizes when to act and when to allow. You may also notice that your prayers are changing. They may feel quieter, more focused, less frantic. That is a sign of trust maturing. With sure trust does not beg. It aligns. Alignment speaks louder than repetition. Remember this. Just because something is already in motion does not mean it will reveal everything at once. Revelation unfolds in layers. Each layer prepares you for the next. You are not meant to see the entire path now. You are meant to walk the portion that is lit. Nothing that is meant for you will bypass you during this movement. Nothing that belongs to the past will regain control. You are being carried forward under protection, with order governing each step. Rest in this knowing. The shift is not approaching. It is not pending. It is already underway. And as it continues, it will unfold with clarity, stability, and a sense of rightness that confirms you are exactly where you are meant to be. My beloved one, now it becomes essential to understand how to guard what hath been activated, because not everything that begins in alignment remains protected automatically. Guarding is not rooted in fear, suspicion, or isolation. Guarding is rooted in stewardship. What heaven initiates carries purpose, and purpose requires awareness to remain intact. Archangel Michael's presence in this stage is not accidental. He is not only a warrior, he is a keeper of gates. Gates exist to regulate access, not to imprison what is inside. What hath been released in your life is valuable. Value attracts attention. Some attention nurtures, but some attention grants. Guarding simply means discerning what is allowed to influence you while this shift is still settling. Influence shapes Duratian, and Duratian shapes of him. Even subtle influences can redirect momentum if they are left unchecked. You may already sense that certain conversations feel heavier than they used to. Certain environments feel draining in ways you cannot fully explain. This is not you becoming overly sensitive. This is discernment sharpening. As alignment increases, tolerance for disorder decreases. What once felt neutral may now feel misaligned. This is not judgment. It is clarity asserting itself. One of the first things to guard in this season is your focus. Focus determines what grows. What you repeatedly dwell on expands in influence. What you consistently revisit gains authority in your inner world. Guarding your focus does not require force or discipline alone. It requires conscious choice. Each time you redirect your attention toward clarity instead of confusion, you reinforce alignment. Another area that requires guarding is your inner dialogue. The way you speak about your own process matters more than you realize. Words shape perception. whatever it is. If you describe your journey as delayed, heavy, or failing, those descriptions create weight. Alignment speaks differently. Alignment acknowledges process without condemning it. Speak from awareness, not frustration. Speak from trust, not pressure. Archangel Michael also guards against premature disclosure. Not everyone needs access to what is unfolding within you. Some things grow best in quiet. Sharing too early can expose what is still forming to opinions that are not aligned. Opinions do not always come with bad intent, but they can still dilute clarity. Wisdom knows when to speak and when to remain silent. This season also calls for guarding against overcorrection. Overcorrection happens when you swing too far in reaction to past pain or mistakes. Balance is the goal. Balance allows openness without vulnerability to disorder. You do not need to harden yourself to remain protected, and you do not need to expose everything to remain authentic. Order holds both strength and softness together. You may feel a strong pull to simplify commitments, routines, and obligations. This is not avoidance or laziness. It is prioritization. When something new is taking root, excess activity competes for energy. Energy is not infinite. Where you invest it determines what grows strongest. Simplification protects momentum. Staying connected during this phase is also a form of guarding. When you like this message, share it, or comment with agreement, you are not just interacting outwardly. You are reinforcing alignment inwardly. Subscribing ensures continuity, so clarity does not arrive once and then fade. Joining the membership keeps you anchored in an environment that reinforces order rather than confusion. These actions are not distractions from the process. They help protect it. Archangel Michael's protection also extends to pace. You are not required to rush to prove that something has changed. Proof emerges naturally when timing is right. Rushing often exposes what is still stabilizing. Patience here is not delay. It is protection. What is rushed is often fragile. What is allowed to settle becomes strong. You may notice old habits attempting to resurface, not with force, but with familiarity. Familiarity is not authority. Just because something feels known does not mean it belongs. Recognition without engagement is enough. You do not need to battle what has already lost its power. Starve it of attention, and it will fade. Guarding also includes rest. Exhaustion weakens discernment. Rest restores clarity. You are not meant to carry this transition through constant effort. Protection includes provision for renewal. Rest is not withdrawal from purpose. It is preparation for sustainability. Be mindful of what you repeatedly expose yourself to. Conversations, media, environments, and even inner narratives shape atmosphere. Atmosphere influences perception. Perception guides decisions. Guarding the atmosphere protects the outcome. This is not about control. It is about intention. As you continue forward, remember that guarding is not perfection. It is consistency. Small aligned choices repeated over time create stability. Stability sustains momentum. Momentum carries you forward without strain. And before this message continues, pause here internally, because this is a moment where attention matters deeply. Keep listening closely, because the next understanding will reveal why guarding your alignment now will save you from unnecessary struggle later, and you will be glad you remain present for what is about to unfold. My beloved one, now let peace settle into you as this understanding unfolds, because there is something important you must know about what happens after midnight passes. Many people fear thresholds because they assume something will be lost, missed, or withdrawn once the moment moves on. But heaven does not operate on fear-based deadlines. Midnight is not a threat. It is a marker. And markers are meant to orient you, not alarm you. After midnight passes, nothing good is taken away from you. Nothing aligned is cancelled. Nothing that belongs to you suddenly disappears. What happens instead is continuation. What was authorized does not expire. What was activated does not reverse. What was protected does not become vulnerable. The shift does not vanish because the clock moves forward. The clock simply confirms that a boundary has been crossed. This is where many misunderstand divine timing. They assume timing is about pressure. In truth, timing is about order. Midnight marks closure of one cycle and stabilization of another. Stabilization is quieter than activation. It feels less dramatic, less emotional, less intense. That is not loss. That is maturity. Mature movements do not announce themselves loudly. They settle, root, and grow steadily. Archangel Michael's presence does not withdraw after the threshold. Protection does not end when a moment passes. Preservation ensures that what has begun continues without interference. That is why the days following a shift often feel calmer. Calm is not stagnation. Calm is evidence that order has taken hold. You may notice that after midnight, there is less internal urgency to do something. That does not mean nothing is happening. It means the pressure phase is complete. Pressure initiates movement. Stability sustains it. You are entering a sustaining phase now, where consistency matters more than intensity. There may be a temptation to evaluate everything immediately. I look for proof, to measure progress, to question whether anything truly changed. Be gentle with yourself here. Evaluation too early can distort perception. Early growth happens underground. Roots form before fruit appears. Digging too soon interrupts development. After midnight, clarity continues to unfold, but it unfolds differently. Instead of sudden realizations, you may experience steady understanding. Instead of emotional highs, you may feel quiet confidence. Instead of dramatic signs, you may notice practical alignment. This is how real change integrates into daily life. Nothing you were meant to receive depends on anxiety. Anxiety never accelerates heaven. Trust does. If something does not manifest immediately, it does not mean it was missed. It means it is being prepared to arrive in a way that can be sustained. Heaven values longevity over speed. You may also notice that some things no longer provoke the same reaction in you. Old triggers feel distant. Old fears feel irrelevant. Old questions feel answered without explanation. This is not emotional numbness. It is resolution. Resolution closes loops that once drained energy. Archangel Michael continues to stand guard over what was activated. Guarding does not require your constant attention. That is the gift of divine protection. You are allowed to live, to rest, to engage with life without monitoring every detail of the process. Monitoring creates strain. Trust creates flow. It is also important to understand that grace remains active after the threshold. Grace did not end at midnight. Grace carries forward. If you stumble, if you doubt briefly, if you feel uncertain again, nothing collapses. Alignment is not fragile. It is resilient. Resilience is built into what hath been authorized. After midnight, you may find yourself responding differently to situations that once overwhelmed you. Your reactions slow. Your words soften. Your decisions feel clearer. This is not because life became easier overnight, but because your inner order changed. Inner order changes how you experience everything. Do not rush to define what this shift means yet. Definition often limits what is still unfolding. Allow it to reveal itself through experience. Understanding deepens through living, not through constant analysis. You are not behind. You did not miss anything. You are not required to catch up. Everything that needed to begin has begun. Everything that needs to continue will continue. Everything that needs to end has already loosened its grip. The passing of midnight is not an ending to fear alone. It is an ending to confusion. Confusion thrives in transitions without understanding. Understanding has been given. Now clarity can lead. Rest in this assurance. What was confirmed remains confirmed. What was protected remains protected. What was aligned remains aligned. You are not stepping into uncertainty. You are stepping into continuity. Carry this peace forward. Let it inform your days. Let it soften your decisions. Let it steady your expectations. Because what unfolds from here will not need to convince you. It will simply make sense. My beloved child, now let everything you have received come to rest deeply within your spirit, because this is the moment of sealing, completion, and divine assurance. Nothing about this journey was accidental, and nothing you encountered along the way was random. From the very first word to this final breath of understanding, heaven has been guiding you with intention. This was never meant to leave you overwhelmed or uncertain. It was designed to steady you, to anchor you, and to remind you that you are seen, known, and covered. What has taken place here is not merely a message you listen to. It is a spiritual alignment you step into. Alignment does not always announce itself with emotion or intensity. Often, it reveals itself through peace, through clarity, through a quiet confidence that settles in without needing explanation. If you feel calmer now than when this began, if you feel less rushed internally, if the noise has softened, that is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Archangel Michael's presence throughout this entire unfolding was purposeful. He was not introduced to impress or to dramatize. He was assigned to guard, to order, and now, to seal. Sealing is a divine act. When something is sealed, it is protected from unnecessary interference. It does not mean challenges disappear forever. It means challenges no longer have authority to derail your direction. You are no longer as vulnerable to confusion, pressure, or distraction as you once were. Take a moment to recognize the internal shift that has occurred. You may not have new answers to every question, but you have something more powerful than answers. You have stability. Stability allows answers to arrive without anxiety. Stability allows timing to unfold without fear. Stability allows you to trust what you cannot yet see. You are not required to remember every detail of what was spoken. Truth does not depend on memory alone. What was meant to stay has already settled into discernment. Discernment will guide you quietly in the days ahead. It will alert you when something does not align. It will nudge you when movement is required. It will also give you permission to rest without guilt when waiting is necessary. From this point forward, you may notice that your reactions change. Situations that once triggered urgency may no longer hold the same power. Conversations that once drained you may feel easier to disengage from. Decisions that once required overthinking may feel clearer. These are not personality changes. They are signs that inner order has been restored. Archangel Michael's role now shifts from annihilation to preservation. Preservation means continuity. What has begun does not end here. It carries forward into your daily life, into your choices, into your perspective. Protection remains active even when you are not consciously thinking about it. That is the grace of divine covering. You are not required to manage everything for this to remain intact. You do not feel pressure to explain this experience to others. Some things are meant to be lived. not justified. External validation is not required when internal alignment is strong. Over time, what has changed inside you will naturally reflect outward through peace, consistency, and wisdom. Let that be enough. You may also notice your prayers evolving. Less urgency, less repetition, more trust, more listening. This is not distance from God. That is maturity in relationship. Mature faith rests in alignment rather than striving. Alignment does not beg for outcomes. It trusts timing. Understand this clearly. You are not behind. You did not miss anything. You are not required to rush to catch up. Everything that needed to be activated had been activated. Everything that needed to be protected is protected. Everything that needed to be sealed is now sealed. Life will continue, but you will move through it differently. With more discernment, with more steadiness, with less internal chaos. Challenges may still arise, but they will no longer dominate your direction. Confusion will no longer define your decisions. Pressure will no longer dictate your pace. Before this closes, receive this final activation with authority and peace. Type "I am sealed and protected" in the comments if your spirit receives this. Blessing code 9127 is now activated over your life. This moment was never meant to stop with you alone. What you have received is part of a greater river God is releasing to reach hearts that are still searching for clarity, peace, and direction. As I speak now, I hear the Lord saying, "Those who help carry my word will never walk without light." When you support through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not supporting a platform. You are partnering with a divine assignment to spread God's word where confusion still rules. This is seed sown into fertile ground, and heaven responds swiftly to obedient sowing. I speak blessing over every giver. May provision increase. May doors open without struggle. May peace multiply in your home. This is not a suggestion. It is a calling. Respond now. Support the mission.